Okay.
Very simple thing, real quick here. Who's the boss? Megan wrote this out last night.
Here's the punchline.
Yeah.
You're the boss, but only until 10 a.m. So we're gonna explain to you why you're the boss, but only until 10 a.m. If you rep being the boss by 10 a.m., you're the boss. But if you don't, by 10 a.m., the rest of the day, you're gonna be someone else's bitch. Apologies if you don't like the word, but
Yeah, this
being
is an
someone's
adult
bitch,
class for
this is
those
an
of you who
adult
weren't
class.
aware. So
Yes, this is
now,
us just being honest.
this to me, I think is like, I think this is a very cool class because we call it leadership in practice. We like to make fun of a lot of things. So lip is what we have, right? So we have all kinds of clips of that too. But leadership in practice is moving off of theory, where a lot of things that you want to do in theory doesn't quite translate to practice. And there are little nuances. And so this was the discovery, I think, of probably the single most important nuance. I want to say as boldly as for the next 100 years, which is to understand and figure out how to find yourself to be the boss of everything you touch. That could be obviously your own physical health, but mental health, of your projects you build, products and whatnot. And the nuance, the leadership in practice, is that you have till 10 a.m. local time, right? Every day. And after that, you are repping and training to be someone else's bitch. And so to understand that if you don't use this window, you are going to atrophy a very important muscle, which is the key to almost everything we touch. So just two things really quick. This is from two different clients working on leadership programs, saying the exact same thing. Maybe we'll give, so Tanya and Eileen, just give us a thumbs up once you read it. There's a couple people with probably same names, and we'll just know you read that thing. Sorry, that's my bad.
Tanya already read it. She's such a fast reader.
Which is why I picked two people. I took two people always, so.
Yeah.
All right. So
Okay.
it's crazy on one hand to think that this is so progressive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when we heard a client, I mean, these are huge companies, talk about like, oh my God, this, incredibly nouveau idea, right? Of like self-leadership, taking ownership. Yet the reality is this, at best in almost every organization we work in, we have comprehended and probably adopted the idea of being a leader, a self-starter, taking ownership of something on the business side, right? Something on work side, like for this project or for this product or, whatever it might be. But this idea of like doing that for your own development, I mean, it really is going back to teachers and schools, right? This idea that a student would actually look out for their own learning, right? Be interested in being the owner of a self-starter, self-leadership. In research, they often call this self-authoring, right? The notion of kind of like authoring your own direction. And this is a thought that I want you to hold in your head because it will come back to this. We've been doing a lot of work around curiosity, and we do this where there are two dark sides to curiosity. The first dark side occurs, and in research, they call this deprivation curiosity versus interest curiosity. It's the first place it forks. A very simple language around this is saying, when you feel really crappy, right? When you feel, whether it's angry, sad, like just negative emotions, you are in deprivation mode. That means you're very susceptible to bad advice, disinformation, misinformation. So a lot of us, when you're feeling really bad, we go and seek out someone's advice. And the most lethal advice is usually someone else feeling really bad, right? And they might give you I totally know how you feel, and go do this. And that advice usually followed is what leads to a lot of bad behaviors, bad decisions. So deprivation is just recognizing when I'm in that deprivation mode, I am susceptible to bad advice, bad information. Just beware. You can get advice, but write it down. Don't action on it too quick. Interest curiosity is the curiosity that leads to growth mindset, to learning, to all the good stuff you can think about. But then there's another fork that occurs, and this is what we're going to go into. Being curious about other people or being curious on just stuff, externally focused curiosity versus internally focused curiosity. Being curious about myself, right? And oftentimes, a lot of people talk about how, yeah, well, the one thing in your control is yourself, right? You have in your control the reaction you have to any situation, meaning you are the author, you are the leader,
Yeah.
you are the decision maker of yourself, right?
Yep.
So always focus on that. Much easier said than done, right? And usually we'll talk about this. This is the nuances of leadership in practice. The interaction with other people, the interaction with any external stuff is what creates the chain reaction, what we call contact sports. Contact sports, which instantly illuminates myself. So in every situation, with every chain,
Yeah.
you're actually getting signals of you, and this can be something that most of us don't realize, don't work on.
Because what we're
right?
saying is life is hard enough as it is. So unless you live on an island and have a hammock and see and interact with nobody, you're just like completely isolated. You're going to be interacting with other human beings, and they're going to ripple onto you, your reactions. And so it's saying life is hard,
Mhm.
right? So in every
Yes.
situation will tell you something about yourself. It's to learn the process of being curious of what just happened?
Yeah.
Why did I just shut down? Why did I just lose my patience here? What's triggering me right now? Why am I catastrophizing the situation? Why do I have
So we're going to
anxiety?
go into a lot
All
of this.
this stuff.
But remember, this is all on the theme of who's the boss,
Yes.
right? And yes, theoretically you are, realistically you are not. Theoretically, right, it should be in your control. Realistically, it is not in your control because you don't even understand what you're doing to every day give up that control. And every day that you give up that control, you weaken the muscle. You don't even know who you are, what you want. The point is you very rapidly
Lose
become
yourself.
someone's bitch.
Yes. You'll lose
Right.
yourself, lose your way.
So,
We're gonna go into that in this class, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
so quick announcements before we go. Let's take a little commercial break. One is we bought a cold plunge, right? And I think we were looking and researching it, an idea from Megan's husband. But then suddenly, like when we heard Rob Olson talk about this guy lost 40 pounds, we're like, oh my God, we could literally cold plunge and maybe 50% increase our food intake and be at the same weight. We're like, that to me was like
That
worthy
sold
investment.
Charlie.
Yes.
I was already invested in the thought
No.
of, recovery, good for the brain, mood, alertness, all of these
I
things.
mean,
But
last
this is
night
the
at dinner,
extra.
I mean,
I had 3
Kathy burned
plates.
more calories.
I know.
I turned to Kathy, I was like, go get another plate without hesitation. Had cold plunge. Now we know it took a year, so, okay, we gotta watch out.
Yeah.
There's some warning signs
Lessons
we need.
learned, lessons learned.
Lessons learned, right?
And we asked.
But I think we're also gonna put out on the terrace somewhere in the new year, red light sauna, because we've heard that contrast of doing the sauna and then going in is good. But right now we're starting with an outdoor cold plunge. And like Rob said, we started like in the Wimpy area, 50 degrees,
Mhm.
right? And then if 30 is death, we're gonna try to go towards 1 degree above death. But this was Kathy's face, right? First
Scary.
person, right? We kind of took,
Not good. Not
who's
good.
gonna go first? Kathy wanted to go first.
Brave.
And this is, by the way, before she hit the 30-second mark. And this is a face that looks like I had my phone thinking 911. I mean, it just did not look good, but the view I had, and
Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth.
and so, by the way, the view was that, we all, Kathy wanted to go first, Megan second, and so forth. And so I was going last. I was the camera person. And I was thinking, like, when you go last, you got to bring it, right? You got to show everyone.
Everything's
that,
a competition.
Right. So when I saw Kathy's face, on one hand, I was concerned. The other hand, I was like, this is going to be easy, right? Then her face turned to this, right? And I was like, what the heck, right? And this is like almost a minute in, and Kathy's question was, what's the maximum you can do this? And I was like, what the F? Like, what kind of trash talking question? This is psychological warfare because I'm going last.
Oh
nonetheless.
my God, getting your shoulders under targets the brown fat. What's brown fat? The back of the neck and upper shoulders. That's what I need. I have to get my shoulders under. I did have my arms in. You guys all didn't even have any arms
Okay,
in.
so
You know.
whoever added that, thank you, because,
Yes.
yes, so, okay.
And Eileen wants to know
So-
about songs. I was the
Okay.
DJ, just
Okay.
in case.
So-
I was a really
Alright.
good DJ.
So we gotta write those rules, right? So we can probably
If
put
you
that
go
in
to-
comments.
if
Doing
you-
like pool
Eileen,
plunge
tips.
rules.
Right.
If you
Cold
go,
plunge tips.
and if you go to Twitter under Charlie and Kim, you can see the songs we
Yeah,
had. We
so,
have video.
I'll-
Are you gonna do it
Yeah,
later?
I'll show you one of them. But, all right, so shoulders under, brown fat gone. Is there any other kind of fat that we want to get rid of?
Brown fat.
There must be different colors, so red fat, blue
I think I've
fat.
heard of it, but I
like,
don't know anything about it.
Whoever has that info, put it in
Try
the
to-
chat. Kathy will
Try to
pick it
figure out
up,
how to get rid of
put some, good things. All right.
Okay.
Separately, totally different topic here.
Events.
Okay, so Tanya is too fast a reader, but maybe, I'm not gonna.
Well, we'll just talk about it.
Okay.
Let's just talk
Okay,
about it.
so, couple things. One is, I guess 2 main points here. I want to emphasize the word variety, and then we are all about bringing really interesting people together. The notion of community always includes not only variety in events, but variety in who. And we are very people first oriented. And one of the things that we want to do, given some of the access and events we have the ability to run here, is exposure to younger leaders, college and high school. So we will allow, like, for example, 2 top students from West Point, 2 from Cornell, but even go to high schools, giving exposure of really
Young adults,
young,
yeah.
like really bright. We're not looking for the pot smoking late, not pot, I guess it's legal now, but not the lazy types, but like take chances on young leaders, spending time with like really amazing people from the tech industry, finance, nonprofits, education, military, senior, mid, junior, and so forth. But we have started to take a different approach. I say take, where it's been about 2.5 years in our new office. And in New York City, we have literally the best event space. And this event space is not rentable because we do not really want to make revenue in any way off of that, but we actually donate it. And so as a result of it, we get requests of all types, and we have been reactive to requests from holding events for presidents and billionaires and nonprofits and public schools. So although we'll keep taking those requests, we also wanted to take a more proactive approach going into the new year. And so here's a list of some of the really cool variety of events that we know key people. And so we're in the process of scheduling these. So whether it's Grammy award-winning violinists and doing music paired with Michelin food, a chef coalition of Michelin chefs competing, where we've had the top Iron Chef judge here for one of our events, and I made a fool of myself thinking she judged some tiny cooking show, and then realized later it was Iron Chef. To like, we're going to do a fundraiser for the #1 microbiome scientist in the world. So we're going to do something cool there. We're talking with one of the top choreographers for celebrities. So whether it's Doja, not Dojo. So sorry, I keep saying Dojo Cat. So like an event,
Yeah.
and the contrast of Grammy violinist to Doja Cat to whether it's the country of Catalonia. We've done a lot with them, and they want us to help promote and celebrate that country. We work with the prime ministers there. So we're going to do something, and probably totally illegal, which is they have these human towers that go up like 40, 50 feet in the air. By the way, it's professionals, it's not volunteers. So we're going to work with the country celebrating all the foods of Catalonia, and then combined with the foods is interesting things with the country, including in New York City on a rooftop terrace, like a
Human
50-foot like human tower going up where you can see the backdrop of Empire State Buildings. If you like selfies, I mean, that's a good Instagram type of thing. Hackathons, we're doing a lot of climate change events, mental health events. We're doing a fundraiser supporting veterans with MOA. BK is amazing. He's the head of HR, 3-star general at the Air Force. We're launching a book launch with this guy, Dan Ariely. So this one has already been scheduled. I think it's like March 14th or something.
Yeah.
We're going into election year in the US, and I think it's going to be a complete, in simple way, shit show. And with that will come a ton of information that's just going to be rumors and false and fake and terrorists attacking the news and media outlets. Dan is probably one of the top behavioral scientists on understanding misinformation. His first book, I think, was Predictably Irrational. He has a new book called Misbelief, and just the science around why people fall for, bad information. And so we're going to do a whole workshop and book launch with him and stuff. So we'll do something big there. But I love the Catalonia, which is, there's an argument, is it a country or is it not? Because they're like doing one of those, like, piece de resistance, like we want to be our own country, and Spain saying no. And it's like the wealth of Spain is in Catalonia, which includes Barcelona. So it's like, for those of us tourists, like, we don't even know the difference. But those of you who are local there, it's like kind of like an up in arms kind of big thing. So, but I love the contrast of like Catalonia, Barcelona, which is known globally of having the best foods come out. Number one restaurant in the world was El Bulli, 12 years in Barcelona. They're just written up of having some of the best foods. Then you go to the complete opposite side of the world in Japan. We've done a lot of work with the country of Japan. So we'll work with the ambassador and a whole bunch of things and do an entire celebration of two opposing countries, not at war, but just different. And then we're looking even at comedians. Laughter is so important. And I think, so it could be Jim Gaffigan. We have a connection with the parents, same school with us, a lot of different connections and things. So stay tuned for this. And then with that, we also have been getting a lot of requests for, we've been running for over 10 plus years, these pro bono leadership academies. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, like, what's the catch? The only catch is you have to name your child Charlie, Megan, or Megachar. Totally joking, but if you want to, it's totally okay. 2 free leadership academies in 2024. It's 3 days. It'll be in New York City. It's like you pay for your travel and we cover everything else. We will treat you like admirals, generals, or I don't know what else is senior, but like a C-suite executive of experience. But the most interesting stuff of Leadership Academy is all the latest work we've done. A lot of people, I think we've had close to 10,000 attend in person over the last 10 plus years, either in a London, Boston, or New York office. But we're going to hold these in New York for the 3-day. But in it, we're going to cover a lot of the latest stuff on training, the self-authoring process, the leadership, decision-making skills, and really how to navigate this uncertain world, risk-taking, show you some of even the latest work and tools we're building using AI to help coach you better. There's just a lot in there, and I think so many cool things. But the other thing we want to include in there now is we always talk about BIBS, which is another word for brilliant at the basics. We want to bring down things to the basic kind of morsel of how to do fitness, how to do nutrition. So we want you to walk away with the bare minimum basics. And there's a version of do it yourself if you want to go,
so
kind of
cool.
cheap or whatnot. Or there's a way to when you want to buy the service. And so it could literally be how to buy bone broth at Whole Foods or whatnot and what not to buy. So all of that knowledge kind of, and
we'll teach you how to make it, and then we'll give you the recommendations of how to buy it.
And
same thing on fitness.
And we always say, come, in athletic gear and whatnot, but here on forward, bring your bathing suit. So you have the ability to cold plunge, and we recommend having at least 2 songs in mind.
We're actually going to have a cold plunge playlist, by the way.
Yes.
Kathy's idea was, I got the chills, they're multiplying.
Yes,
I don't have a good
and
voice,
this Ice Baby.
And then you came up with one last night.
Frozen, right?
Yeah,
No.
She says the cold.
Let it go.
Let it go. Let it go.
So-
No, the cold doesn't bother me anyway. The let it go doesn't really.
No, but you gotta let it go when you go in there,
Yeah.
right? And we were saying,
Well,
by the way,
not. let it
our
go.
thesis
I
for
think
those of you who have a lot of
urinating is the
anger
thing.
issues, I think you go in there, I can't, right? Those of you who go in there, you cold plunge for 5 minutes or 4 minutes, I think you'll have no energy for anger.
Well,
right?
if somebody gave me really critical feedback after I was in there while I was
Yeah.
trying to recover, I'd be like, okay, sure,
Yeah.
great. I had no energy whatsoever. I just felt kind of zen, like,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
Like there's no energy to kind of,
So for those of you who have like criticism to give to like, say, your spouse or your child or anybody else, have them cold plunge when they get out, read the criticism to them. I think they will absorb it at a different rate, which
I really
actually,
think
this
so.
sounds insane. We did do experiments around this. This is kind of true what happens. So, but those of you also with anger issues go in, I think you will not have the energy for anger, but,
really, it's great.
and then you can eat more. This is like just win across the board. we get asked this question a lot. It's like we have all
The
kinds of
strategy
notes.
behind why we're
Um,
running so many
yeah.
events. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is it's a little bit of a messier explanation. We'll tighten it, but I think we just wanted to expose and share, especially if you're new to this class too, why do we run so many events? What's the purpose behind them? And this is our office space and it oscillates as event space for leadership training, but we were including other things around learning, health and wellness, everything that we do, but that is important to us, and things that are cool is also important to us. But and it's good for playfulness, and we'll explain some of that too. But there's a marketing budget that we set behind it. It is marketing our space. It is marketing what we do. It's bringing in different people from different, walks of life is important to us. But yeah, it's exposing our work. So that is a part of it. There's a marketing budget for that, but also it's part giving. We said good natured, meaning giving has always been part of what we do for over, 30 years now. Charlie has really driven a lot of the giving that we do, and it's a big part of how we've always operated. So I think that is a big part of it, but why the pro bono leadership academies, we're bringing that back in. We didn't do that for we didn't do as much of it last year, but the year prior, our first year in this office, but prior to COVID, I mean, we were every month running a leadership academy, and then every other month eventually, but thousands of leaders coming through all pro bono training, but it's also benefits for our clients. So we have Business One, which is Perks at Work, which a lot of you probably heard about our program through the site. So Perks at Work, we call it Business One. It's all of our clients. And then Business Two is our leadership business. But it's also increasing who we know, like I said, and we sort of talk about this notion of bending. You've maybe heard us use this term before, where it's an asset of ours. We have a really unique space that we built in terms of, the space we have, we built it in a way that took us a decade, the thinking, we were experimenting. We set up a really amazing office space and we know a lot of diverse people, and we, have a lot of reps bringing the right people together. What a unique experience we can create. So we're bending kind of the giving, the marketing and our clients
And I sorry, this is all like literally conversational notes.
Yes,
Megan and I, we walk home most nights. And the reason why these notes came out was that a lot of people want to pinpoint, can you tell me the one reason, basically what?
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's
There's
not.
a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And, and there's a lot of things as you get to know us and, whether it's online or in person, it's the nature of, playful fun, but also like, I always look at it as like money can't buy our attention. And so in the same way, we like taking individuals who never would have access and then exposing them, whether it's a high school or whether it's someone in a nonprofit, whatnot, to a room full of people, an experience that they could never really get. And that is something that we have done for 30 plus years. We just do it at larger scale now. And so a lot of even some of these things is kind of like, everyone talks about now life is about experiences, not stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And experiences of the right kind, curated the right way with the right who in the room is just amazing. And so just kind of like the whole reason behind all that. But with that, we're going to go to, just a great segue into experiences. Teri, who's in the middle, who we met completely during COVID online through the leadership and practice class, has taken leadership class and whatnot, was one of the 5 individuals who went to go and train the UK Navy on leadership. I'm going to stop my sharing, give her a chance to share. But I just think it's cool for you to hear sort of like really quick 5 minutes, her experience. And the reason we share it, more importantly, is because there's nothing we do that doesn't double up in self-development. Like I said in the very beginning, every external experience is giving you an opportunity to learn more about yourself. So maybe with that, turning to Teri really quick.
Goodness, go for it, Teri.
Thanks everyone. Yes. Thank you, Charlie and Megan. This first slide really is just giving you the basic who I am. I'm one of 6 kids. I've earned a black belt a few years ago, and I'm an avid runner. And this all plays into kind of how I do my life. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this part here. Let me see if I can get my sorry, the next slide. I did have my family in here, my husband, we got into pickleball last summer, and then my sons, we like golf, and this was a golf range that we attended this last fall. But overall, I think I've mentioned a few times about my interest in growing as a coach and leader. I've really had to do some prepping though when this opportunity came to me, and I thought about, how could I put on this hat to coach the Royal Navy, and I did a few things. Once I prepped a little bit with my husband and his business to kind of get the what's working, what's not. But then it kind of fell into place, and I just leaned on the training I've had through my Mod 1 training and Always Be training, but also just the whole leadership and practice recordings and time with Charlie and Megan each week for this 1 hour of class. So I really put into play that lessons that came about through those classes. So we did have a great arrival, and we met with our Next Jump office team, and they were so good to kind of walk through really what to expect through our 2-day training. And that first day was about getting kind of set up for success for the event. And this is working with Kevin then. And then we basically jumped in a car and went to Collingwood, HMS Collingwood. And a few things that were on my mind in this case. I had a few things thinking about first of all, really, how to, take this gift that I was given to have the opportunity, and then put it into action as far as my intention for being an amazing coach. I had to worry about being able to be heard as a soft-spoken person. Some of these things I did. I brought up to the head coach, Greg, and Steve as well, to actually give me support in that, and they took care of all of that. And at the same time, still wanted to know really how was I going to integrate this into my life as a coach. And a couple slides here, really just sharing kind of what it looked like as we did our couple exercises, doing the actual presentation. There's a segment of the day that they prepare a presentation, and then there's also coming into play the next day. We do some voting, and I leaned on my martial arts to kind of help explain the both sides of being a human being and the tendencies we have one way or the other. So I use martial arts. We really want to train both sides. We have imbalances. We really want to be able to have some confidence in our other side of our regular tendencies. So I did a quick conversation. Richard might recognize that person. Anyway, that was part of it. That allowed me to do some growing just in the whole idea of really seeing folks lit up by this actual possibility that they could train all the different imbalances they have. In most regards, this decision making was kind of the highlighted training that we wanted to help them and encourage them to take a look at, and getting that self-awareness, getting that kind of a quick insight in this 2-day event. So we learned how this, we need to keep training. I learned that I myself need to keep training. As I want to help others, I need to do it myself. So that training is in place now, and I'm learning all the time. Each week I come to this class, as well as I go forward, taking a group through the PRT, the Mod 1 class, starting in January. So overall, the celebration really was the highlight of the week. Really just coming back to Next Jump London office, and they prepared an amazing meal. We had so much fun chatting. I mean, I think it was 2:00 when we finally said it's time to get to our hotel for our flight home the next day. But these people here, really amazing people, and the coaches, I can't say enough about, Greg and Steve, and having a partnership with Jason as we were working together as coaches, and Melanie, really, I think she got most improved award for the week, because she really came alive, and so impressed with her. The dessert, I think that's the bottom picture there. But Charlie, I think that's it. Really, I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity. It was just amazing, and happy holidays to all.
What's really cool is there's a couple things. One is I don't know how many of you know this, that we have 2 businesses. The second business was never built as a business. It was built in just an organic way of sharing every part of our culture, what we did. And with all the write-ups and coverage and TED Talks and Harvard saying we train people better than anybody they found in the world. Bridgewater, the biggest hedge fund in us, got put in this book. But I'm sharing all this because the whole business too was always a pro bono initiative of just helping other people. And the main reason we commercialized it was really to continue the work. The pressure from shareholders and board members, they felt that we were not running a business, that we were just doing it for, I think, vanity's sake or ego. We're like, it really isn't. And they kept accusing us of that. So we ended up building a business, and I love what Teri shared because the experience itself is so cool. But I don't like, so what we did was this, we created a business to, in essence, do more of the pro bono work. A lot of the funds we get off of the commercial side, to be honest, we channel to the coaches. So every coach that was there, you know, Teri got paid $10,000 for the 2 days of work. The lead coach gets paid $20,000. And that's like keynote speaker level fees. And what we do is always two things in one, this idea of stacking and bending, where although they're trained and going in to train other people on leadership and decision-making skills, there's always, I think, even a larger, better me version. So the lead coach will go in, and the lead coach's job is not only to make sure the whole event runs well, but also to coach and train the other coaches there. And that's the better me side. We always say better you and better me. And the resounding reaction we always hear in the 2 days, and you know, the travel, but also like the celebration after, is being part of an elite team. Right? I think Rob also, when he went, said, it reminded me of the days when I was part of the Navy SEALs, like team. Being part of an elite team, even if it's for 2 days, you get a taste of it. And you say, holy shit, that's real.
Yeah.
Right? I want that more often. I want that, you know, it's easier, I know, sometimes in an intense window.
Right.
But we're bringing people from different organizations, and you're going and experiencing the level of speed in communication, speed in difficult conversations, the speed of actually like processing immune responses of defensiveness and overreacting, the speed of adjusting to just uncertain situations. And it's tough, but then it's so rewarding when you do that. And that feeling of just working in an elite team, once you experience it, it's so cool. I really feel it's the greatest gift that you can get as human beings, which is being part of an elite team. And if you get to do that in an often boring, everyday, weekly battle rhythm basis, but then you do these intense things as well, that's the right combination. So these, what we call them kickoffs, and we do it at the client site. We have them as offsites when we have them in our offices. But they're just really powerful.
It's really
things,
interesting. I was just thinking about, we do a lot of work with the military. So the different Air Force leader, I remember was in special ops in the Air Force, and he told us the best memory he has of his career is when he worked in, you know, special ops and certain different operations he was on. The memory of that high that you get when you are challenged with a group of people who are also putting themselves through challenge and struggle together to then come out of it and learn about yourselves, you get so close. That's how bonding, it's like you bond through suffering, right? We've heard this a lot in the military, that it's the suffering that makes you bond. It's really hard to bond with people when everything is a celebration, you know, like, which is why often when you work closely with people and you struggle together, when you go out and celebrate, or when you go do something fun, it feels extra fun. And then you wonder why it doesn't carry over to maybe other friends you have when you go out. It's not as fun. It's because you didn't struggle together.
Yes.
So it's really interesting because everybody's been bringing up the celebration afterwards. It feels so good to work hard together and then play hard, you know?
No, and I think people always forget it's the who that matters most. If you curate the right who, you put the right experience. I mean, it's like the optimal environment for not only learning, but also experiencing kind of like the best version of yourself. And there's a best version, and it's odd that in that same experience, the worst version of you comes out too, under the stress. And then when you find teammates that come and literally help you through it, improve you, and then you can see change as fast as 2 days for yourself, even though you're there to teach everybody else, it's amazing. And you'll see a lot of the best mentors will say, oh my God, through the process of mentoring, I am gaining so much out. And a lot of times people think, well, that's like humble bragging. It's what a person's supposed to say, but done right, that is actually true. And you know what's interesting? We found since COVID, a lot of people working from home now and whatnot. A lot of people kind of picked up side projects, side hobbies, side jobs even, and sometimes that's frowned upon, right? Actually, like I kind of frown upon it, but putting that aside, like this idea that every company wants you to make investments in training yourself. If you said, I want to do more work to become a self-starter, a self-leader, to learning the skills of ownership. Every company says, yes, please do more of that. The act of actually teaching is the highest form of learning. We learned this years ago from how they train teachers in Japan, that there's levels of learning and the highest level is the ability to teach it. And so this is kind of just very cool stuff. But all right, back to the class. Give me a
Yeah,
second.
cool. It was awesome to see you in that, Terry, meeting all these people.
Yeah,
through
no,
this. It was
we saw
awesome.
some of the
It's fun.
text and chat. It
Yeah.
was so cool to see a shy, quiet Terry
Yeah,
just
proud
coming
of
out
you.
of her shell, sharing with the group the experiences. And
First
kind of-
time traveling internationally
Yeah,
too. How
first-
cool is that?
that's
You
cool
know,
too.
It was awesome to see
Yeah.
that, Terry. So
And
it's fun to see people in our community that we met during COVID or online when life just was real rough. You know, we had to reboot our business of all this in-person work to a virtual Zoom and just teaching complete strangers
yes,
every week. And then to see these strangers who are
like
now
blossom up and
part
like,
of our team
no,
now. It's really neat.
it's crazy over the years in COVID. Number of people even just in this video screens here that have got promoted out of careers that were stuck just through this leadership work. And I think that's just like proof of it. But to see individuals grow, blossom, and like literally some of the communication here we saw, it was just, I mean, it's like, we're probably all not the same age, but I think, I felt like parents watching, like our LIP community member
Yeah.
just grow and experience international, which Megan always thinks is locked up abroad, but it's not.
No, it's not always, not everywhere,
Sometimes.
but I do, that sure scares me.
All right, so going into this,
Okay.
we're gonna go into this notion of being a boss and how to become your own boss. The top left green box you just read already before, but just recognizing what happens to us. We come into work, we start the day, we have others author what we do. The minute you start reading news, it's telling you what's going on and it's giving you all kinds of advice, emails, someone else's instructions and plans. They influence how we start the day. And we end up throwing out all our daily intuitions and daily judgment. And what we find as a general leadership in practice is by 10 a.m., you're done for. You're now fully indoctrinated back into whatever state you have been trained to do. And said another way, this diagram on the right is just kind of my messy handwritten diagram. The number one thing almost every CEO, and we spent time with more across different industries than most people, they want people to apply better judgment. And judgment, intuition, and psychology all are synonyms. And the way that we should look at it, think of when you go to rock climbing or go really high altitudes and it's a cloudy day, sometimes you can only see the mountaintops. You can't see what's beneath the cloud. You wake up every morning and you have these headlines. They're often emotions, they're thoughts, and there's gold underneath some of the mountains. But the reality is there's a lot of crazy in there. And as a result of that, we end up throwing the whole thing away every single day. And by 10 a.m., you have now become almost brainwashed again, backed into it's like going back to factory days, back into the organization's culture, brainwashing strategies. So we lose our own self, our own authoring, our own leadership, our own thoughts, our own judgment, our own intuition. It's now back to what you're supposed to do. And supposed to do defined by who? Don't even know who that is sometimes, but it's definitely not you. And that's what happens. So diving into this further, this diagram on the top, if you've seen previous LIP classes, one of the things that we found most profound was looking at history and seeing how history tends to give you lessons. But the hardest lessons to find in history are lessons that occur beyond one person's lifetime. Every 100 years. And most of us are not able to live and experience any lessons that go beyond 100 years. So these are lessons that occurred in someone else's lifetime, but unbeknownst to us is very difficult to see. And the biggest insight we found was that every 100 years, there is a material change in how human beings work. Said another way, every 100 years, how we define being productive, right? You know, we talked about, I think last week,
Yeah.
contribution, right? We wake up in the morning when we feel purpose, like I matter to other people, that's purpose. But contribution, right? Like
When we feel
I
we
have
can't
something
contribute,
to contribute.
It's hard to get out of bed, you feel you're not gonna contribute, yeah.
But that definition of how to contribute actually changes every 100 years. You think of the agricultural days, how different it was. I mean, we had to all wake up early, right,
Mhm.
to go to the farms. I think
Right.
daylight savings is still like done pretty much only by the crazy country United States because for farmers. I mean, it's like, God, like I wish they would not do this because I hate getting dark at 4:30 or 4:15. It's a lot better to have 5:15, but in the morning, right, when the farmers are up, when all of us are sleeping, right, it's nice to have light. Like, I feel it's kind of outdated, but
Yes.
sorry, I digress. But agricultural, moving to industrial,
Yeah.
being a factory worker, there was a different set of ways to get productive versus moving to this knowledge era. This era where the number one asset no longer is the land, right? No longer is like, factories and whoever has the better machinery, right? And more money was able to win. It's moved to what's in your head. The ability for a human being in very small teams able to outdo large enterprises. This shift is such a material shift. But one of the more important components of the shift is the diagram, which I know it's hard to see. On the left, this is what's shown up in the research. 90% of work was straightforward, clear work, meaning you can see everything, practically everything, 90% of what's in front of you, which meant the leader that says, I know what to do and I'm going to organize and I'm going to command what to do, like most people should follow because we have sight over what to do.
That was the 1 year, 5 year plan, like we actually have a sense of what the plan is, we're gonna chop it up, right? And we're gonna give people a piece of the plan and we're gonna just march towards getting that done.
Versus how it shifted is completely reverse. 90% of what we see in front of us is unclear, is not straightforward. It's set up in a way that is the equivalent of walking in a dark room versus a room that's like lit up. Walking in a dark room, you cannot apply the same strategies for human beings that you could working in a light room. Working in an environment where every day it's not quite clear what to do if it's variables, assumptions are right. It's what people call chronic uncertainty. There's a sense of constant change, constant instability, combined with unpredictable stress. If you woke up this morning and thought, okay, I know how today's gonna go, how many times does it go exactly as you planned? Like usually the best we have is a vacation. Like I kind of plan want to make sure I don't miss the big breakfast, right? Then, kind of maybe how I want to have lunch by when and dinner. Like you have this plan on vacation and sometimes that goes to plan, right? If you have children, it definitely doesn't, but like there's a plan. I think you have a better chance of vacation going to plan. Come to work, not so. I mean, how many times literally, you guys can do your own audits. And so what ends up happening is this, given the change in the environment, there is more crazy than ever before, right? More crazy is kind of us individually defining how everyone else is acting, right? I'm like, what the hell? Has everyone lost their heads, right? Like whether it's presidents or anybody like below that, which I think is the highest, so anyone below that, more fear, right? Fear of like getting hurt or things going wrong, unexpected things, right? More anxiousness, more feelings of overwhelmed. And it sums up to one word that I like a lot, which is bracing. You know that feeling when you're bracing? You're bracing for something to go wrong, right? And bracing versus the opposite is playful, right? When you watch children and they walk into a room full of wine glasses or a kitchen that's like it got burners on, they just run in, the adult is bracing for an accident, the child is just being playful, right? The difference of the two and the contrast. And I'm adding to that how much harder it is to be self-authoring, self-starter, self-leadership, which is all around learning to be an owner, because it is very hard given how much advice, I say the noise of advice is out there. it's really hard to not follow that noise. Do you know how much research and data is shoved in our faces every day of what you should eat, not eat, what you should do workout wise, how you should work, how you should think? I mean,
Yeah,
we
we're
are
overwhelmed, inundated
bombarded
with advice.
with advice. And it's hard to figure out, well, what do I think? What do I want in a world where there's just overwhelming avalanche of advice and information given to us all individually of basically listen to me, right? I am the boss of you. I am the data is the boss of you. So this is the world, right? And this change. So by the way, for the Leadership Academy, it's all on nextjump.com. If you go in, you can apply and whatnot. It's all free there. But nextjump.com, this is a slide Laura put together with the team, the exact thing I just mentioned. But I want to emphasize two pieces underneath it. In the 20th century, which is the industrial age, I want you to think factory. We still are living in the remnants of the factory era. And this is the part that showed up in history. Technically, the numbers, 20th century technically began after New Year's Eve, in Y2K or year 2000. Yet historically, the change occurs, they say, around the 20% mark into the new century. So 2020 historically was the prediction of when this change would occur. It's taking a little bit longer, right? But it's approximately in that window. In 100 years, plus or minus, 3, 4 years, 5 years, it's not that, it's very similar. And so plus or minus 5%, 2020 was the date this change was supposed to occur. But in the factory days of the industrial age, the number one character trait that we all focused on was confidence. Confidence was considered good. Like if someone said, whether it's children or whether it's in adults, if you said, I have a way to help you be confident, everyone's like, oh my God, what? Everyone could use more confidence. Leadership was chosen based on confidence. Public speaking skills, the way they stood, the way they dressed, confidence, everything was looked apart. Remember, we know all the TED Talk speakers, Amy Cuddy with the power pose victory V.
Yeah.
Confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence was good. Curiosity actually was not. Now I know this is, stay for a sec. Curiosity, one researcher wrote, was seen as the purest form of insubordination, right? This idea of like stop being like a child. Why do we do this? Why do we have to come in and work at this time? Why do we have to have our cameras on? Why do we have curiosity?
Back
Can you
in the
imagine?
day, it was just, it's no concern of you. You don't need to know anything. Just sit down and do your job, right? Like you didn't need, it was a need to know basis, right? Everything was need to know, and you don't need to know. So
And
just sit down and do it.
Why this is important is when 100-year change occurs that none of us have experienced in our lives. One of the hardest things to understand is our intuition, where something feels right and something feels wrong, but I'm not quite sure why. It's because it's 100 years environmentally ingrained in us. Confidence, good, curiosity, bad. And this has flipped. The 20th century number one character trait to succeed was confidence. Some people say, well, humility. Yeah, humility is a distant second. If you found a leader or an individual who was confident, but also had a little dash of humility, you're like, wow, they're so admirable, so attractive. They're so confident, but also humble. But no one says, oh, they're so humble and they have a sprinkle of confidence. No, it's the other way around. That was the trait to succeed. You needed both, but a lot more was confidence. In the 21st century, it's totally different. The number one new character trait to succeed is curiosity. It is not confidence. I'll say it a different way. If you have a lot of confidence, just same as conviction, and you walk into a dark room, right, where nobody can see anything, and you say, guys, I got this, right? Follow me. See the lethal nature of mistakes that could happen. When every step you take, you're getting information that tells you what might be happening. It's like trying to read the room in the dark.
Yeah.
I think there are these restaurants you can go to now where like you eat in the dark and it's like served by blind people. And if you've seen this, there's movies on it, but it's actually experiences. And so the entire experience is in pitch black darkness. And your servers are blind people, right? And you're sometimes there with strangers as well. I mean, I can't imagine, but can you imagine going in there saying, well, now my number one trait is confidence, right? Let me take you to this restaurant. I mean, you'd probably crack your teeth. You'd probably like hurt people. You'd trip all over. Like in that state, it's no longer confidence. It can hurt you. What was it?
No, I just looked it up. It's
No, this is real. No, this is real stuff. I'm not making this stuff up. Sorry. For those of you who thought I was making everything up, but
No, we
Um,
believe you. She's just
curiosity.
She's curious. I was curious. She's curious about what.
Kathy's looking up. She's like, this is real.
Yeah.
No, but curiosity. Curiosity is the key. You need to be alert. You need to be curious because every single data point is going to help you decide what to do. Confidence is like, I got it, right? I already planned. I know what to do. Everyone follow. So the trait has flipped. And this is very hard because I don't even understand. I feel one feels good and one feels bad. I'm not quite sure why, right? You know, I remember my parents saying, stop asking so many freaking questions, go to bed, right? Why do I have to go to bed? Why do I, like, stop asking questions? Like, that's all ingrained in us for 100 years. So going back to this slide here, what ends up happening first is this, deprivation, curiosity. So most people say curiosity, I'm a curious person. This is great for me. It's my time to shine. Not true. If you take the dark paths, the dark sides of curiosity, you will be a wreck, right? So first is when you don't recognize, as in this is self-awareness, that you're in a bad state. In the game of poker, they call it being on tilt. Tilt is when you're emotionally jolted, right? You no longer are using your smart brain, you're using your slow brain or dumb brain or whatever brain you want to call it. It's when we turn into like the lizard brain mode, fight, flight, and the number one thing is freeze. What you'll find is that that is the time when you're most susceptible. It's like when you're most susceptible to get COVID or cold, right? Most susceptible to bad information. And that will lead you to do irrational sense making, which leads to irrational decision making. When you see people doing irrational behavior, it's because they're in deprivation mode. They're on tilt. And the number one thing that shows up before the irrational behavior usually is freezing. They're just frozen in their tracks, often physically, right? It's like Kathy's face when she first went in, right, to the cold plunge. That was deprivation. She's going through her head. Am I going to die? Is this going to be okay? Like, is something going to, cramp up and be permanent? Like deprivation, right? And if someone threw out some suggestions of what could happen, you're most susceptible to believe it, right? Even if it's totally incorrect. That's what Dan Ariely studied. It's what he'll be talking about in his book launch. But recognizing this, most important. It's almost like, don't drink and drive. It's pretty much that, right? Don't make decisions, right? And don't start like thinking, oh, I got it. This is good research when you're in a deprived state. So you have to know this. But the other side now goes to the second fork, right? When, a lot of people are like, I'm a really curious person, right? I love stuff, right? I love picking up random things and learning hobbies. It's more closely related, this form of curiosity, to procrastination, lack of focus, meandering, indecision. This is the dark side of building the wrong form of curiosity. So putting simple language, it leads to being a effing train wreck. Now, you might not think you're a train wreck, but people around you will see you as a train wreck. And now remember, everything moves in ranges. And so you could be an extreme train wreck or you can be a mini train wreck. But once again, we don't teach leadership in practice to teach you to be a train wreck. We teach leadership in practice to how to understand how we become train wrecks, understand how we become irrational behaving, gullible people to the wrong stuff. What's the flip side? The flip side, when you do this right, is what leads to being focused. It leads to being a great decision maker, amazing innovator. It actually creates resiliency and toughness. It's how to win. Now, here's the nuance that's confusing for most people. And this kind of is really important, right?
Nuance.
Very important nuance, right? So I'm just going to animate a couple of times so you can see it, right? Contact sports. A lot of people say, oh, well, I am really good at having the right kind of curiosity when I'm alone before I'm disturbed by anyone. When I go on vacation, when I go to the mountaintop, right? When I sit in the cold plunge, or when I sit, like this idea of it's not contact sports when you're doing self-awareness alone. And why that's important is this. We are very good at being very good people when nobody is around us and nobody's bothering us and we're completely alone in our thoughts, in our experience. But the minute someone interferes with our mind, with us physically in our space, which by the way occurs now out of a tiny computer called a phone, it occurs from one comment, one look, the minute we interact with life is when everything goes haywire.
Well, this is why we were saying, when somebody put in the chat before about self-reflection, we're talking, so this is part of the nuances we were talking through last night. We're not saying sit in a room and I wrote down like self-examination, self-reflection, like meditating. It's not, yeah, it can sound like we're saying you need to be more Zen-like and think about and like, I don't know, it can go into this kind of like, whether it's hippie or I don't know how to offend, I'm just trying, it's not this like solo where there is an opportunity for that. What we're talking about is when you wake up in the morning. So we're going to talk about
Yes,
that.
we're talking about
So,
this.
so you can capture that. And that is when you're alone, right? In your head and how to capture that. But the second you interact with other people in real life, hitting you or certain situations happen, it can be the first thing when you walk into the office in the morning, seeing someone that might trigger you or you didn't expect that. And now, so it's how you think about how you handle those situations and
Yes.
what's happening to you. So I wrote down a way Charlie was talking about it last night. It's sort of this like curiosity of what's going on in my head, which is the self-awareness, the internal curiosity. What's going on in my head right now? What am I thinking?
When
What
I
is happening
interact
with other people?
When I interact with the world,
When I work with,
right? That's contact sports,
Yeah.
right? There is a place for self-examination, self-meditation. If you do it, bless you, do it. And I
Yeah.
think it's good.
Yeah.
It's not going to be enough though.
Not enough.
Because
Yeah.
you'll see there's the common word that's really been popularized is the word active. Think of active meditation, active examination.
Like active recovery,
right?
Yeah.
When people say you can control your own reaction, well, before we talk about like you should be able to control your reaction, the reality is if you are not aware of your own breaking points, your own failure points, what is the combination of things? Like it's like watching those chemistry sets or whatnot. When
Yeah.
you combine a certain amount of chemicals, boom, it explodes. Like what's the thing that makes me explode? What's the thing that makes me, the best of me, the worst of me?
Yeah.
That's contact sports. So where it's hard to understand is you need the interaction with external stuff to be able to get an active read of me. That's what we're talking about here. This is the form of curiosity we need to work on, right? The form of curiosity of what I look like when I'm in motion in the world, not when I'm lying still in bed, right? Or on a beach. That version of me is what I need to read on, self-awareness on, not the version of me that's calm after vacation, right? I'm in the best of moods. That version is good to do, but not really going to help you because most of life, we are bouncing into external stuff, people, stuff, projects, things, right? Contact sports. So this little nuance, kind of really important. Hopefully you didn't go belabor it. There's a lot of articles. This one came up recently. Therapists say there's 6 common habits are fueling your anxiety. There's not a person who doesn't suffer some form of anxiety, some much more than others. So this is kind of my view of it, right? What therapists say, I say, you know what? You can't avoid it. And I say this in a way where don't feel bad about it. Like, meaning the world is moved from this notion of 90% you can see what's happening to 90% you cannot see what's happening. That is just anxiety provoking. So if you feel anxiety, instead of saying, oh my God, and they're saying, don't do this and don't do that, just recognize that's completely normal in this next 100 years, right? Every human being that doesn't feel anxiety, you got a bigger issue, right? You are so numb, you're not picking up on what's going on around you. So that's what we call the reckless fool or whatnot. But like this notion of you can't avoid this stuff anymore. So I look at all these things and yeah, they're all good pieces of advice, but don't feel bad. Do not start by feeling bad.
And maybe Steve,
right?
just to answer the question, Steve was saying on the deprivation curiosity, because I think it's a good question just on this nuance about it. Does it mean you read the situation? Is deprivation when you get the wrong read? That is a big part of it, right? Like
But it's not always the case.
I can get an email, for example, if I'm in deprivation for, say, my son struggles in school, I can get an email from the school actually saying something good about him, but I'm bracing for something bad. So I might actually read it as bad.
But I'm saying it's not
Right,
always
you'll have
so,
to,
no, it's not
so
so
obvious.
linear.
It's not so
Here's
linear.
the part that's
That's-
interesting about character traits or even emotions.
Mhm.
One doesn't correlate to the other. meaning you can be feeling really crappy about something,
Yes.
right? And a completely different thing, because you come in feeling crappy, you act like what a crappy person would do.
Yes.
They're not always linear, right? Which is why it's more important to understand, am I on tilt or am I not? Because if I'm on tilt, I'm gonna take information and like
Process it
the wrong way.
incorrectly,
And
yeah.
if I process the wrong way,
Now my data
Yes.
is distorted, right? Like my logic is
and the
distorted.
way decision-making works, if you look at decision science, it's a form of pattern recognition. If we see, oh, you said that, but you said that too, I must be certain to follow that advice. Hearing something more than once, this is why social media has figured this out. Oh, the more likes, that must be correct, right? The more shares, that must be correct. We tend to believe when there's a pattern of something repeated, it
Yeah.
must be right.
Must be right.
And you think it's like, oh, well, that's shared 1,000,000 times, viewed 1,000,000,000 times, it must be right. No, the reality is our brain works, a pattern is literally two. Two is a pattern.
Yeah.
And sometimes people say, well, I only saw one. No, but don't forget, we have history, we have memory.
Yes.
Oh, I think I heard this pattern 10 years ago. It's the same thing. It's happening again. We pattern match very fast and we often don't even recognize it. Like I said, curiosity being the purest form of insubordination, we have to unlearn it. Curiosity is the beginning of learning, is the beginning of going into an unclear, ambiguous situation to learn what the military calls SA, situational awareness, which is a fancy word to say, what the hell's going on? Right? In any situation, you need to go and say, what the hell's going on? Right? You need curiosity, the right kind of curiosity to situationally assess. And what we found, leadership in practice, every day we wake up in the right place, but it goes wrong right from the beginning. Right from the beginning, all the way up to 10 a.m., we do all the wrong things. And then after 10 a.m., right, all the wrong things started up till 10 is what's creating the rest of the day to become as bad as it is. We are conditioned to be led. That's the 100 years. The entire organizational cultures, every company, we have these 5 values, this and that. That literally is an industrial age relic to lead you to behave exactly as the company leadership wanted everyone to behave, right? We were wired to take instruction. And so the entire world of people is actually waiting not only for advice, but also like
Yeah.
to now give advice.
This is the
right?
scary part we talked about last night. I can't remember in what context exactly, but we were talking about how we want to be led even by a doctor, tell me what's wrong.
Yes.
And now you have to lead yourself. Like
Right.
they don't know. But a lot of times they
Doctors,
actually don't know. And
lawyers,
so if you're saying I'm gonna
teachers.
be led by you, in school, teachers must know. I mean, growing up, it was the teacher has the right answer, the teacher knows all. They don't. And that's a very scary feeling that you believe somebody has the answer. And and I think it does create a feeling of calm and safety.
Well,
someone
short
knows.
term. It's
Short
different
term.
like a sugar high, right?
Yeah.
Someone knows. Well, you know what? The truth plays out. And you know how many times I've heard people tantrum, like literally grown adults tantrum. How could the lawyers do that?
Yeah.
How could the boss do that?
Yeah.
How could the doctor get this wrong? Like
Yeah.
that's malpractice. And
Yeah.
yes, there's malpractice and stuff. But the
yeah.
point is, how could social media give me the wrong advice?
Yeah.
How could these people share the wrong article?
Yeah.
We are all like
Wired
losing our
to-
shit on like bad advice, and it's like,
Right.
no, and there's a
mean,
part of, wait, like, can we wake up to the change? Can we wake up and grow up in the sense of saying, wait a sec, like,
Why am
all that stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Why am I letting someone else? Why do I believe someone else knows all? I mean, even like the president. I mean, but yes, my only point is I think it is a hard adjustment to get to where you can't trust what used to feel like these authority figures
Mhm.
who knew everything.
Yes. And by the way, for those of you who love ChatGPT,
Yeah.
if you actually
Oh,
understand
yeah.
what they coded, the number one thing that is different than say Google search that ChatGPT coded was always giving you an answer, right? Like literally always giving you an answer and doing it in a way that's very believable.
But the
Right?
caution is use your judgment because this could be wrong. I mean,
No, but most people, you read it, it
you have
sounds
to use your
correct.
judgment though.
It sounds
right?
correct. I'm saying most people don't.
Yes.
We've spent time with the best in the field of AI. and that said that the number one caution on using AI, it's a master bullshitter. It is good at giving you bullshit answers, but that sound really believable. So they say number one kind of warning caution on anyone using AI is make sure you apply your own judgment, right? Like they have extreme cases. Please don't replace the court system with ChatGPT, right? That like, it just sounds right. That person should be sentenced for life. That person should be executed. Like the cautionary tones was always apply your judgment.
Yeah.
Yet we forget about that and say, wow, this is amazing, right? Tell ChatGPT to write a letter to a neighbor and sound like a lawyer, like it's gonna sound good and maybe right.
Yeah.
But if you don't apply your own judgment, you're gonna be in trouble, right? So,
Okay. The steps,
this is
right? How things
very
fail.
important. Okay. So this notion of investing in improving your judgment, improving your intuition, right? I'm talking about till 10 a.m. every day, right? There are 5 ways it fails. Now, Tom last week shared a process that the team is engineering an app by sometime early next year. I think that will help you. But if you don't need an app, this idea is you wake up every morning, right? And you're going to have intuition, right? I have this somewhere, I think later on. Oh no, actually I have it here. I have it here. So here, and then make sure to go through the 5 ways here. So this is important. Headlines. It is very important to actually write down the headlines. And the headlines are like, once again, don't think of homework. It's like, what am I feeling? Think about what you're feeling. Your thoughts are darting in different directions. And why you have to write the headlines first is this, right? On average, I'm just saying maybe you get less than 6 hours, but I'm assuming average adults are sleeping, say 7 hours, right? Everyone does that. You should sleep 8, 9. I'm like, go F
Okay,
yourself.
7
Like 7
hours,
hours,
yes.
right? Like just, that's the reality for most of us at best, right? Our mind works at 4,000 words a minute. If you do the math on that, how many words per page, you're talking about processing around 10 books. 10 books overnight is what our mind processes. And we've done a lot of work with some of the best in not only neuroscience, but top athletes and whatnot, performance, individuals. And they talk about how to use your subconscious mind to your advantage. When you're sleeping, your mind is processing. I want you to think every night you go to sleep, you're reading 10 books, okay? The headlines you wake up with is the same as saying, ChatGPT, can you summarize my 10 books that I read? That's what's popping in your head. Now, for those of you who are like, well, and Thomas shared this process and people like Kwong have taken a different route, I'm telling you, please stop doing it the wrong way. If you start processing one headline to start, you will forget your way. If you start narrating and feeding into the first headline before you figure out the other mountaintops, we lead our mind. The way we talk to ourselves, the way we narrate, the way we pour energy, you just kind of forget what the other topics were. So the first thing you got to do is capture the mountaintops, the headlines. And you can do it in many different ways, scribble on paper, type it in your phone and whatnot, but there's some point, right? Between when you wake up and by the time you're hitting this is prior to 10 a.m., right? I would argue you almost need to do this before you start to interact with anything work-wise or whatnot. You got to try to come up with your headlines, okay? Error number 2, if you do this exercise, looking for an outcome. When I say looking for an outcome, saying, so when will I be strategic, right? When will I find my gold? When will I be brilliant? You're going to get it wrong already.
It's like, how many cold plunges do I have to go in before I lose 40 pounds? Just like that.
Yes.
See, don't go in
Or
like
I can
that.
eat like
It's just
50% more calories a
just
day.
good for you.
Either way, right? But what I mean by this, and we had a whole debate on this.
Yeah.
If I use the word confidence, right? And I said, do this every morning and it builds your confidence. People are like, that's great. I'll try it. Just the act of building confidence is good. But if I say, now, this is to build curiosity, everyone's like, well,
Do I need to build curiosity?
Is that going to help me?
Is it going to help me?
And that to me is our ingrained thought that confidence, we don't question, curiosity, we question.
Yeah.
You have to recognize the unlearning on that alone. Curiosity is what we need to build. If you walk into a dark room, the number one character muscle, the trait you need is curiosity. As in not deprived curiosity, not I'm curious what Laura's thinking right now. No, in front of me, myself, I need to be curious of everything I'm feeling, touching. Otherwise, you're going to get hurt or you're going to hurt other people. Curiosity is the new trait. The environment changed. So instead of thinking, when will I be? No, I need to build this muscle. Otherwise, I'm going to be an effing wreck to everybody around me, eventually myself. So outcome expectation, make sure you catch when you do that. Third one, identify your imbalances. All my mountaintops are good, or all my mountaintops are bad, right? You got to keep doing it. By the way, be authentic, right? Which means you have to let the bad happen. You have to, remember, do not go fake. Do not do that. Charlie said, you got to look out for all these things. If you're going in this to do it perfect, you're already effing yourself up.
Yeah, we're
'Cause then you're-
training,
then-
this is
then-
training intuition,
Right.
not.
If you go in to do this perfect and you remember what I said to do it perfect, you are my bitch. And I don't want you to be my bitch. I want you to
Such a
be
good-
your own boss.
Well said.
Right? Which
Well said.
means there's an exercise we built early on years ago. You know, for children, we say, ask them at the end of the day, what was the best part of the day? What was the worst part of the day? It's simply saying, no matter what the situation, right? I mean, this is an extreme example. Even the Palestinians in Gaza could do an exercise every day. What's the best and worst part? And most people say, how could you possibly have a best part? It's situational. There's always a best part situationally, and there's always a worst part situationally. Some days are so bad, you probably have a lot of worse, but there's always something good as well. You have to, over time, identify if you're imbalanced. Which doesn't mean, by the way, you might have a day of all good or a day of all bad. That happens. But when you look at minimum over a course of 90 days and you find this massive imbalance of, oh my God, all my mountaintops are like 95% or 80% bad or 80%, 90% good, you got an imbalance, which means you're not digging up everything. Your 10 books you're reading is not all horror books.
Yeah, they're not all-
The 10 books you're reading at night that you're processing is not all like rom-com love stories. Like, you know, it's not books about winning the lottery. There's everything hitting you. And so keep that in mind. Number 4 is a big one. People mess up. You need to dig deeper. Most of us stop and keep it fuzzy and high level. And you don't even recognize that you're regurgitating an input. We input so much advice and information. We start by regurgitating what we're supposed to say, what we're supposed to think. The number one example, and I hope I don't piss off too many people here, when I think about the millennial or even the centennial generation, the level of certainty they have on stuff, and I have like where are they getting this certainty? Who are you following? Because I promise you, it's not you. Where did you read this?
Well, you're saying it
Right?
sounds like authenticity, that they're
The
following
idea
their
of
intuition and they're the vibing,
autonomy.
they're being themselves,
Yes.
authentic. But I think the way you were articulating it is that, well, they're following, they don't even realize how much, maybe brainwash is
Well,
the
I mean,
wrong
well, it
language,
is
but they're
brainwashing.
being brainwashed by
I say
social media
brainwashing,
news.
sorry. You know the word influencer?
Yeah,
Whose bitch are you being?
yeah.
Who's influencing you to believe what's coming out of your mouth is right versus this is wrong? Is it really you? And I will promise you, most people, it's not them. They're regurgitating without even recognizing where's it coming from. Digging deeper helps you find where's it coming from. Is it coming from a TikTok I saw? Is it coming from an article I read?
Yeah.
Is it coming from someone I look up to and they said it, so now I believe it? You gotta dig deep, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of crap, there's a lot of crazy, you gotta keep digging till you find the root elements of this stuff. This takes reps. Then number 5 is the hardest. So you will get to this last. Coaching yourself situationally. I want you to think like a doctor. You know, this notion of this situation requires X and less of Y. You know, like as an adult, we can do that.
Yeah.
You can go into a situation, imagine walk into a room full of children and every child is bawling, right? Do not walk in as an adult saying, let me join the bawling and just add more tears. Now, situationally, we say, okay, maybe someone needs to add some laughter
Yeah.
or find a way to calm them down.
Yeah.
Like it's recognizing this is not self now. Situationally, the imbalance, and you can be like a
Correct.
chameleon
Yeah.
and change to the situation. So like I put examples, more difficult, more stressful a situation, there's more playfulness required for yourself and the team to succeed. The more certain or more conviction a situation, there's a lot of blind spots, you should ask, what am I missing? What's the other side? What's more exploration? This notion of understanding how to react differently to different situations, right? Okay,
Yeah.
yes. All right. So I have a
That
couple
was just the
again,
curiosity
stuff.
versus confidence,
Okay.
yeah.
I only have a few more slides.
2 more slides.
or actually, sorry, a couple more, but,
Next maybe, but they're gonna go fast.
sorry. This was really cool. It's a book from this guy, Sri Kumar, who was one of the top, business school professors in Columbia. There's lip videos on him. He's a really smart guy. But he put in this, landmark article in the New Yorker talking about how coaching done well, keep in mind, done well, right? A lot of people experience coaching done poorly or mediocrely, right? Coaching done well may be the most significant intervention designed for human performance. Coaching done well is maybe, I think it is, the most significant intervention designed for human performance, which is why over the years when we did recruiting and hiring and everyone knows that, oh, what's the key to good hiring? We thought it was humility, and it was for a while, but then we found the number one metric was coachability. Because just like coaching done well is important, but being very coachable allows you to be coached very well. And that is in our control,
Yeah.
and most of us are damn near uncoachable, to being very frank. So like, it's a skill you can learn, right? Like everything, it's a rep skill you can get better at. This is interesting. Nothing gets human beings more productive than a great coach. And with the speed of information that we are receiving as human beings, whether it's boards of companies, advisors, therapists, even coaches, we cannot get enough of their time. We need it daily and often multiple times a day. We need so much help on our mind, our psychology. You will not, from almost most of us, 99.99% of us will not be able to build a Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett type relationship, even like a mega chart type relationship. That is a very elite place to get to. Most of us cannot find someone who is keeping in touch with what's going on, enough of my sense making and decisions to coach us in real time. And if it's not real time, definitely not every morning, right? Recognizing this impediment, you have to realize first what a great coach does, right? This is coming from some of the best out there. They help us dig deeper, think harder, make tougher decisions, and communicate more clearly, right? Said another way, it's helping people build higher levels of self-awareness before getting higher levels of situational awareness. It helps us be more creative and innovative ways in any situation. There's more options and more choices. This bottom bullet, right? With the speed of information, the speed of ripples changing any situation. Let me tell you what that means. You walk into any situation and I'm thinking, okay, I got it. I know what's going on. I know what to do. Remember, it's a moving target. What's going on is moving, which is you have to anticipate where it's going to move. Every single piece, as I make my decision, it's moving. You have to realize how insanely difficult that is, right? And how insanely difficult to be very good at that is. The traditional way of how we operate at work, I make a presentation, whether it's to a board every quarter, to a manager every month, or maybe every week, right? They're reviewing it to give me guidance. And the reason why that's so much less effective is that you need faster, more real-time guidance. It's not possible to capture what's happening in a PowerPoint presentation that I prepared over a month that I'm going to present and think that it's so accurate. Yeah. There are things of accuracy, but it's just, you have to realize how hard it is. I think this
next example,
yes.
I think this is a great way to describe what happens. I faced this week. That feeling where things are moving so fast, the double dutch, it's moving so fast.
Double dutch, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is when the jump ropes are like two ropes going. So I didn't know. I didn't know.
Never
it was
heard it called double dutch?
I just thought it was insane jump rope. I just never knew it was double dutch.
Double dutch, yeah,
Right,
perfect. Okay, so like double dutch is like, it's going really fast as two, right? But when you try to get in, it's going fast. You're like, I'm gonna get it now. Maybe now. And you just keep hesitating.
Yes.
Now I'm gonna jump in. That's what happens when that's the feeling of there's so much moving, there's so many decisions to be made, there's so much changing, and you're like, I gotta get in the action, I gotta get in, I gotta do something. And you just keep trying and you can't get in, and you start to hesitate and you freeze.
Yes. Well, so when you say keep trying, like most people never get in.
They don't ever get
Right?
in. Yeah.
And I'm saying that's what it feels like in life everywhere. You're watching this thing,
Things are
right?
passing
And I don't
by.
know, so I was not a very good I didn't even know it was double Dutch jump roper. So when I see it, I'm like, all right, that looks kind of cool and easy. They're practically dancing. So I want to get in and I'm there watching this thing. It seems to go faster and faster. My eyes are blurring. And then I'm like, I could get hurt. You're
Yeah.
now imagining
Now
it
you're
hitting your
smiling.
eye, your head, tripping,
Yeah.
looking like a fool, everyone laughing.
Yeah.
And at some point you might say, fuck it, I'm going to go in. Guess what happens? You get hurt.
Yeah.
You trip, you fall, everyone starts laughing, you break the whole game. Doesn't that sound like freezing?
And then
Irrational behavior, right? Now I'm pissed, right? I'm
Yeah.
pissed at everybody else. And I'm like, wait, like,
Yes,
welcome to
yeah.
the 21st century, right?
Jump
We're
in,
all
get hurt,
watching
and now
double
pissed.
Dutch, right? And for those of you who are really good at it, you need a better example because
Yeah,
you're
we're
gonna be like,
not-
oh, I
we're
love
not.
double Dutch, right?
We are not.
So I am not, right? So,
I think it's a good illustration.
going back to this, you are, who's the boss? You are,
Until 10
until
a.m.
10 a.m.
Until you interact
Right.
with others at work.
But
And-
if
and-
you do not rep this correctly, every day you're giving up your only window to train the muscle of becoming a self-starter, self-leadership, self-authoring, becoming the boss. Because every other hour after, you are now repping being someone's bitch. Whether it's the influencer on social media, whether it's the company values, motto, whatever it is, everything. And this whole notion is this, that change will come. It will come because it happens every 100 years. But if you want to get ahead, you want to succeed, you need to start building your muscles of becoming your own boss, which you have every day until 10 a.m., right? You got to find the mountaintops and then you got to go through the process of figuring out what's underneath it. So if you don't want more details, last week's lip class, what Tom covered, has the basics, and we're going to build tools to help you, right? This was kind of just from our,
Oh, this was the conversation we had last night, sorry,
Yes.
so I kind of already shared some of this, but this is the, 100 years, we're supposed to think for ourselves, right? Every culture, Charlie was saying the entire machine was built to produce followers. But this notion of now, who are we listening to, right? Is it the New York Times, the president, the teachers, right, the doctors, right? This is this conversation we just had. But you have to trust yourself, listen to your gut, but the fact that your gut, your intuition, some of it's good and some of it's crazy, right? This is why you have to process, you have to train to get it out and to actually sift through what's right, what's good, what's bad, and just keep repping this. Anyway, so this is the conversation. I think, yeah.
and you can recognize how if you go back,
yeah,
the president doesn't lie, right? They have the most information, they must be right.
yeah,
The doctor said do this, right? The teacher gave us this answer, like this notion of like, they must be right.
it must be right.
Versus I think we all know, not true, right? And you can Google search and find, or ChatGPT and find an opposing thought. And this is the problem, right? So this question is, who's right? And anyone who's walking around, right, that says, well, you shouldn't do this. I'm like, is that really your thought? Where is that coming from?
Yeah.
Who are you listening to? And they're not even sure. So the act of digging in, every morning we wake up with our own intuition, our own judgment, and our own thoughts. So before you lose it, you got to figure out how to hone that, how to train that muscle. This is the part. It's so simple on one hand. We've all lost our own voice. The unintended consequences of this information overload, of this information era, is that we kind of forgot what we would post. What's the article you would write? What's the video you would record, right? And then add to it 100 years where the entire environment was built to condition people who followed, who weren't supposed to think for themselves. You were supposed to follow the president, the supervisor, the boss, and if you questioned it, it was insubordination. That was the most effective, productive way to make work. It's different now. And so if you think of what we need less of and more of, we need less bracing, more playful. But you cannot find playful until you find your own boss, right? Under stress, energy, hesitancy, timid, that double Dutch, do I go in or not? We need less of that. We need more of fully engaged energy, right? We need less optics. People pleasing skills lead to anxiety. That was one of the top 6 in the thing for the article of anxiety. Being authentic, right? We found this term it's actually It's an insult in Japanese to say baka, but we like it because we like to make fun of things that are different. So baka, we said, should be a kid again. If you're able to find being authentic, fully engaged energy, playful, you will see that you will find your voice. And as much ugliness that shows up in the beginning of every morning, it's also in there. The best parts exist even in the worst parts. So here's the warning label, right? Kind of flash it to make sure you see it. Follow your gut, listen to yourself is awful advice. And I'll tell you why. Until you rep it and you get past, I think Mike had a baby, you'll see a lot of this for now. Meconium is that dark tarry poop that comes out of babies. Until you get past this part, follow your gut, follow your advice. It's not following your advice. It's following the brainwashed advice you've inputted. It's coming from somewhere else. Find you, to me, is the New Year's resolution, right? It takes reps. And you know the rule for New Year's resolutions, right? First, it's that I think less than 3% of people actually have New Year's resolutions that work. Meaning most of us, a huge majority, 97%, it's like don't even waste your breath. It's simply a few words that mean nothing because it doesn't really follow through. But the ones who do, there's a part where they don't start January 1. They start before. The pre-ramp matters. If you say, you know what, starting January 1, I'm going to start eating healthy. So what am I going to do from now, right? Today is December 21st. For the next 10 days, I'm just going to eat really bad, right? So I'm going to start myself in this massive deficit. That's what most of us do. That, the 97% where the resolutions don't matter. I don't think there can be a better resolution to find myself, right? My own boss, my own authentic, fully engaged, childlike, playful self, and knowing that is the thing that we need more of and less of being someone else's bitch, including social media, news, and everything else. And this is something that takes reps. And this, I think, to me, is a cool resolution. So to start the reps, starting tomorrow morning, and do it every day if you can. If you can, even the workday, fine. Take the weekends off. I like taking the weekends and doing everything backwards if you have to. Dessert first before you do that. Just do it the weekend one day only. But I think I had one last slide, which is I just wrote this right before class. New Year's resolution. This is true leadership in practice. And something even with all the events, there's a term called epistemic curiosity, which really stands for accumulated. And years ago, this is like 20 years ago, one of the best mentors I had said, the thing you get from a great coach or great mentor is they said it's CIA. C stands for capital. Second is introductions, and then great advice. But the reality, we changed it to AIC because people look for that stuff in the wrong order. Can you give me some money? No. Well, can you introduce me to someone? No. Well, then do you have some advice for me? The best relationships and the best coaches and mentors do it in this order. Knowledge first. Then you get introductions, and then eventually you might even get capital. To me, true wealth is accumulating AIC in that order. And what I look at our events we're creating, may you borrow some of ours so you can build yours, right? Like a lot of what we do is to help jumpstart finding yourself, finding your own knowledge, finding your own network, building your own capital, and we'll give you a leg up if we can. So with that, I wanted to just show one more thing, only because I'll show you just two videos.
This is our Be a Kid again.
Right? Yesterday, as we
This is our
sort of
playfulness,
initiated our cold plunge. We're just going to share, maybe not all the videos, but just you can go look yourself. So if you go to my Twitter account, right? I'm just going to show you. So I'm just showing you two videos.
You got it.
She's an alpha, but not around the boy. She be quiet around the boy. Hold on, come on with
Motherfuckers, is it really that easy?
That was
There's a couple more videos if you want to take a look at it, but
trying to be playful.
in the middle of winter in New York City, right?
It's cold.
What we all thought, I really thought it would last no more than 30 seconds. We had a leaderboard, and so we did 5 minutes, but we literally just goofed around in the middle of the day. And that, I think.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, right? Because it's always like what Charlie said, the meconium will come out, there's risk to it too, right? Which is a challenge. You're like, oh, am I gonna be judged? Is this the right thing? It's like, you kind of want to put your adult hat on and say, I'm the leader in charge. Is this the right thing to do? Should we not be doing this? How are people judge and whatnot? At some point, you're like, between our judgment, I'm a good DJ, Charlie's a good videographer. We got Kathy dance mix. We're like, we're gonna have fun with this. We're gonna find a way to have fun. And it does take work though, right? You have to think about it. You have to put some investment
Sorry,
into
but
it.
the way you say it
It
sounds so
sounds-
stressful.
It sounds stressful.
Sounds not so fun.
Okay.
It's not how it happened.
So there was
right?
like 10% work
was like-
and 90% fun.
Yes.
Maybe that's the way to look at it.
We'll take any comments, questions, anything? I'm trying to think. So I did not get a chance to look at chat. See, it's a lot of chat in there. Anything, anyone can unmute, so I'll try to digest. And Laura, I think you're supposed to be digesting, but I'm not sure if you did.
Steve had a question about deprivation and curiosity. I don't know if you still have it, Steve. But
We answered
we
that
can-
one. I think, yeah, we answered that
Um,
one.
oh, we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Anybody, reactions, thoughts, New Year's resolutions, like your top takeaways?
And by the way, this whole thing connected to last week, if you were with us last week, and the tool that Tom is building, I mean, it's really interesting. It's like it's a way and a tool to help you do this exercise, right? Capture
Yeah.
the headlines, capture the mountaintops and dive deeper. So I think, we're trying to connect it to that work, right? We're building a product around this, but
Oh,
yeah.
before I
okay.
forget, this is for Richard, in London. We're trying to schedule a trip to London last 2 weeks of January. If you're around, maybe we'll come see you, and I think you have 2 other people you train with, coach with, whatnot. I don't even know where you are in London. I'm assuming you're in UK.
He's in London.
It says London.
Sorry, can you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be able to get to central London if you're around, so that'd be cool. And I'll
We just lost you.
bring
Yeah.
in you guys are free. So if those guys are free, that would be amazing. So we can tell you about what we do, and but more importantly, how we work together, how we bounce the ideas off each other, which would be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know the stuff that always is good is if we come and even see exactly where you work and what it's set up, it helps us kind of like we have more reps seeing people's workspaces and thinking environments in different industries. And so even the tiny adjustments to optimize it even better, like happy to
Yeah,
kind of maybe try to coordinate that.
yeah.
That'd be really cool. Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
So we've talked about curiosity today, and how curiosity is the important move that we need to make and progress that. But if you are in an organization which is of the old type, led by confidence, especially higher up, how does that new focus of curiosity penetrate so that we can progress even in those old organizations? How do you burn it through, Charlie and Megan? How do you push it through? How do you fight the cause?
So no, I love the question. Love the question. So here's the part that's interesting. Everything, if you think of it as a game, right? It's all beatable, right? If you love video games, right? It's kind of like almost anything in life. I think the privilege Megan and I've had over the last 30 years for me, 25 for Megan, working together has been, we have met the most amazing human beings. Everything that was said to be impossible, they figured out ways to do it. And their creative ways, it's just mind blowing. It's like literally
Yeah.
fixing diseases and paralysis to organizational change. Realize you can beat this game, right? But the first thing to kind of realize that to beat this game, you need to train yourself in parallel. And the number one muscle in curiosity is including observing them and then observing your reaction to them, right? Oftentimes you don't realize that, like, every adult is as much confident as they're insecure. And the more confident they act, usually they're just an awful layer of insecurity buried under a shell
deeper.
that's so thick, it's like ostrich eggs, right? Like they may not even realize it's there, but it's there. And so it's amazing when you're able to observe like what triggers someone, including that confident boss. Like there's a notion of oftentimes you need to win their trust, and to win their trust, it's not about like optics of kiss ass words. It's actually first being able to observe every aspect of what the situation is and how they react to that situation. Point being,
Yeah.
curiosity is the muscle that you need to even win in those situations. And I say this where, end of the day, you have that phrase of the best ideas win. The best individuals win, except the definition of the best has changed. And the definition of how to get to the best idea has changed. The old days, you write it on paper, best idea, boom, should work. That's when it was majority, 90% clear, straightforward, like you can see everything. When you move into an environment that's like that, when you come up with something that isn't flexible, isn't agile, right? Has so much conviction, that's no longer the best idea. In fact, it's the most lethal idea, right? So this notion of like even getting to be able to build that kind of agility and flexibility, you have to train it first yourself. And as you see the way you act, there's a couple things I think that always play in your favor. The environment is shifting in your favor. The mega trend of the 100 years is shifting in your favor. And to realize, wait, I shouldn't be frustrated that we're in the middle of this change. It's like kind of watching the tide change and you're pissed off the ocean water is disappearing. No. The tide is changing, the water is moving out, right? Like, do not be pissed, right? Like, do not get tilted and worked up.
Meaning there's like an appreciation and understanding for why things are the way they are, why the leaders act the way they do, right? I mean, right, and that's why in the military, I think you learn a lot about history and context and origins because you have to understand where they came from. And I think
But I'm saying
that's part of building the trust, right? That you.
It's not even just that, but I'm saying like, first and foremost, even like the tone from what Richard's saying is kind of a frustration, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost like if I put simple language, how the hell do I deal with these crazy, like,
It's the
like
Charlie,
egotistical.
it's the layers and layers that we have.
Yes.
You spoke
Yeah.
a number of months ago about the frozen middle, and I think
Yes.
that's a really important thing to recognize.
Right.
Right. So the leadership training that I'm doing now with John Collette, which is absolutely fantastic, is the small wins there. And the small wins are simply when we have our syndicate work, and then we have our sub syndicates, and we discuss it on a one-on-one basis, and then you start to see the individuals aligning to a newer way of thinking.
Yeah.
They're buying into it because they realize that the old way, it's not working. It's not working for them. It's not working for their teams. And they're the small green shoots that I see on a weekly basis now, which is fantastic. I think it's the higher up, it's the layers and layers that we've got to continue pushing. Because if we don't push, then it won't happen. We won't reach it.
But what's interesting is watching even, I'll go back to that slide about the two dark sides of curiosity. It's happening for the bosses as well. It's not just you. I think we look at everything always from kind of my own lens only. If I look at this slide, it's happening for them as well.
Their own deprivation, you're saying?
Yeah.
Looking for answers.
And this idea of deprivation, another way to say it is we talked about the mental immune system, our own ego, our own defensiveness, right? Like kind of like this worked before, why is it not working? It's like, that feeling. And, we talked about how the top thing we have seen across CEOs and leadership is what someone described as the boiling frog syndrome. Like, God, if I saw this thing in a different light, I would never tolerate this stuff that's happening, right? Like, nobody's even coming to work. I can't believe people are bitching about this, right? Who the hell cares if there's like donuts in the coffee room? It's like, I'm not trying to kill you. I'm trying to do something like, whatever it might be. This notion of they are humans too. And this is the hard part. You can understand. What I loved about Dan Ariely's work was he was helping describe, the point is predictably, irrational, right? Like you can be predictably irrational. Like, it's like human behavior is studied, and even bad behavior like shows up in certain combinations, and you can understand it. So that curiosity of understanding several things. One is high level, the tide is changing.
Mhm.
That's history. That's why this is happening. That's why there's so much freezing, dysfunction. This is just madness, right? It's almost like we're given too much power and information at once without understanding how to know, should I listen to this? Should I not? And while I'm trying to decide, it's like Tom's diagram has showed people raising hands in the restaurant. They're screaming at us. Listen to this one. This is the right advice. Like that, like we're not trained for this. We're not used to
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
right? And then every culture and environment is built where we're supposed to just follow someone's idea, instruction, strategy. So realize that tide is changing, high level.
Yeah.
Second part is when you start to understand, okay, human beings are the most unpredictable things, but there's a predictability to their unpredictableness. So that's now building your interest curiosity. When you go in and you're like, God, these motherfucking bosses, you're in deprivation yourself.
Yeah.
Everything you're doing is picking up the wrong stuff too. So to recognize how to get yourself, in the right state, that list of playful, which is the opposite of bracing, right? Fully engage energy, finding your authentic
Well,
self.
is it maybe the language too, that the outcome, and because I hear you, Richard, and trust me, like, we've been working on this for so long, and why I'm sort of quiet is I'm thinking, it's like this desperate desire for the outcome to move from the old model to the new one. And it's like, you just want to pull your hair out and say, I don't understand why you people don't understand that this model doesn't work anymore. I mean, so this has been our life's work of trying to figure out, how do you create this movement? How do you get people to shift? It's not going to happen overnight, but how do you get a movement to occur that is inspiring, that gets people to say, oh my God, this is like and it's like, I think because you want the outcome, we want the outcome. When we feel like that, we are in deprivation curiosity, it's not going to happen.
Yes.
It's almost like being frustrated, with a child who's not getting off the floor, like, get off the
Tantrum.
floor, it's a tantrum.
Right.
They won't get off the floor even more. It's like,
So then the
it's
first good
recognizing
use-
we can control that
Yes.
emotion, which is desperate for outcome, to say, wait a second, it's not happening this way. It's not gonna happen this way, I'm frustrated.
But this idea of understanding, it's saying,
Yeah.
oh, that makes sense.
They're on the
That's why they're
floor
being irrational.
Because
Or-
they need safety and they're
or-
grounding themselves. Okay. So now I
Or said it
understand.
another way, oh, the tide is changing. They're used to having the tide be full,
Yeah.
right? Which is why they're used to working a certain way. And now they're frustrated because
Yeah,
like the tide changing, but when the tide changes, it's not, you can't pull it back.
yeah.
Not until it shifts again. And this 100-year tide change, I think, okay, good to know,
Good to
right?
know.
So
Calmly, good to know.
you get calmer, which puts you in interest curiosity mode, right?
Mhm.
And then this notion of realizing curiosity is not an important move to progress, is what you said. I want you to think of it as a muscle, right? Character traits like confidence is a muscle. If you train it all the time in the right way, it gets stronger. You can train confidence. You can become more confident, just like you can train humility. You can train curiosity and you can train the right curiosity, just like you can train the wrong curiosity. You can train getting more deprivation curious muscles stronger in yourself, right? I am more like frustrated in every situation is a trainable muscle, right? I am gonna be a procrastinator and only find interest in random things and everybody else except myself is a trainable muscle. Train it the right way, we'd be to say, no, like that's not what I want to do. I want to train, right?
But what's interesting, Richard, sorry, can I just jump in? Like, well, we like you a lot. And I think why it's that feeling of you want the change to happen in scale and like yesterday, right? I mean, this is like the work, right? And it's almost this frustration or whatever language you want to use, that is it going to be enough that Richard, or me and my few teammates, if we change and we show a stronger curiosity muscle and we start to get better at this ourselves, are we going to be able to innovate and create something awesome that says, wow, do more of that? Because that's what senior leaders are looking for. They're looking for results and progress and movement towards impacting the mission. That's what they care about. Their job is tied to mission, right? And so if they don't see
So yes,
change that impacts mission,
so yes, but can I give you a caveat to
yeah,
that? But if you do it,
yeah,
and then while doing it, you do the finger wagging,
Yeah,
see you all suck and see you all are awful,
Awful.
you're gonna trigger someone's mental immune system,
ego,
right? And then,
automatic defensiveness.
and then even if what you're doing is right, they will find a way to shut you down,
Shut it down.
right? So this
Shut
is
it
the
down.
part where like there's This is
This is why it's a game, and this is why this game is all psychology, and that's why it's so freaking hard, because just because it's, you make progress and you see result, if you trigger someone's ego,
right.
doesn't matter. They're not, and they're in charge, and they're the ones that are gonna make the decisions, you still lose.
No, and so I can't tell you how many times I have the conversation. Do you want to win?
Yeah,
Or do you just want to feel good? Is
Yeah.
it about ego? Is it
Right.
really about winning? If you want to win, then can you swallow your ego? And like,
yeah,
and that now puts you in
Yeah.
a different place.
Oh, if I just close off before somebody else asks the next question, all I'll say is that the conversations that are now taking place in my workplace, I've not heard before, and it relates to the training that a number of us are doing. So this in itself, having these conversations and introducing these topics is refreshing, and again it's making people curious. So that is happening. It is developing. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's coming through. It might be in small numbers, but this is great. And when I hear people saying, "Oh, I'm starting to get this," just hearing that in my mind is fantastic.
Yes, and you know that podcast I told you to listen to, the whole Jeff Bezos with Lex Friedman. But the part I feel like that I was trying to point you to was this. I love this part where Jeff Bezos was talking about how, we are social animals. We are social. And by definition of social, meaning the number one thing that mattered was being included, right? Like, and
the tribe,
truth was often not a very good thing to be included, right? If you were the town truth teller, talks about how you would likely be clubbed and killed in the middle of the night. And the reason is because a lot of truth is difficult.
You're ostracized.
So we were not wired to not give truth or receive truth well. If I got truth of, well, you know what I don't like about you, Ruth, suddenly you feel like you're being kicked out of the club. And so now I just would like to kill the person, right? Or see them hopefully get sick and die. Then now no one knows about that. Like, meaning there was a sense of inclusion into the tribe based on keeping it copacetic. And so, but this whole notion of even what Bezos has worked to build, is trying to build, is he talks about how he wanted to build the #1 decision-making machine, in essence. Wanted Amazon, Blue Origins to be a better decision-making machine than any other, and machine being not the product, but people, right?
Yeah.
We want to be higher velocity of decisions, better than anyone. And the #1 thing that matters at the foundation is truth. If you don't have truth, you don't make the right calls. But the problem is a lot of truth is inconvenient. A lot of truth feels icky, triggers ego and whatnot. And so it's just recognizing, and I love what he said, which is to reassure people, we are so wired biologically, and this is now not even the last 100 years. It's like caveman years. We're wired to like fear truth, either given to us or, giving it, because I might get clubbed at night if I give the truth that makes someone feel bad, right? And if someone, points out truth to me, I might get cut out or whatnot. So like kicked off the island, it's like Survivor, right? Who's being voted off the island today? Like that notion is so difficult. He talked about just helping people recognize this is supposed to be hard. We're biologically wired to feel like this is not good for me, not safe. Yet we're in such a different era where decision-making and our ability to literally decide what to do as an individual, as a team, as an organization is literally human decision.
Right.
Like, and we can leverage tools like AI or ships or jets or whatever like it is. We have so many things that we can leverage to execute our decision in bigger scale than we ever have. But that decision-making requires truth. That was not what we were empowered with the last 100 years. It was not what we're empowered with in the caveman days. And to think that we shouldn't honor and understand that wiring in us and how that's playing out, that's curiosity that will make you win this game.
It's like,
right?
it feels like a slow down to hurry up, but there's the patience to figure that out, to do that understanding. It can feel like it's going to take a lot.
We need to move on from the ego and arrogance as well. And so many people have that as a rap.
Yes.
That's a self-defense mechanism to shut down the conversation.
Yes.
It moves
And I
into the
think
confidence thing as well.
Yes, and
Yeah.
even in that discussion, you have to be cautious that every human being has a breaking point where your ego comes up. Every human being has a breaking point where your defensive preemptive moves will show up. So when you recognize that, it's removing the shame element out of it and realize, wait, I want to understand my own breaking points first. And when I watch someone else's, it's like you should realize, oh, mine has also a point. You're seeing theirs, it's often easier to see, but hopefully that external interaction triggers, what's mine? And then you think about the stuff, and the person who's in the flow of working on the stuff is the best coach, right? The person who is constantly figuring out their failure points is the best coach helping anyone. And so, like, I look at this as kind of like, it's hard because there's so many things that are just negative and bad, but we've made it very black and white, negative and bad. I'm like, no, this is like kind of human. This is all human stuff, right? And it's all trainable, and we can train the right stuff, and we can also train the wrong stuff. And so, like, a lot of the work that we've done, our life's work has been on figuring this out. And it's cool because it's like saying, wait, you can win. It feels impossible, but you can totally win. Like, holy shit, every morning I was starting in a way that made me lose. I'm like, oh my God, what a good insight. So given that insight, you got 10 days before the New Year's, of January 1. Let's start fucking winning, right? Like, let's stop the losing part, right? Let's start winning. And it starts with finding myself, which I'm
Yeah.
like, that's so cool.
That we
No?
can do, yeah. Fightable.
Very cool.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, that's great.
We will see you guys in the new year. You guys have a
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. If you don't like Christmas, that's okay. Whatever you
holidays,
celebrate
yeah.
in the window if you do. And whether you eat, drink, or whatever you do, like,
Let's talk about
Find
the
you.
playfulness.
Find
of-
you.
We can talk in January 4th, and what did you find
Yeah.
about yourself? That'd be cool.
yeah, no, like
Do
that
that.
whole notion of, people say laughter
Oh,
cures
the
all.
test kitchen's gonna be January 11th, actually, so, so we moved it, so we're gonna teach that, we're gonna
teach
teach
on
January
January
4th, and then the test kitchen will be January 11th.
Yes, but I was saying, that aspect of laughter cures all?
Yeah.
Like, I look at it as, no, it's not laughter, it's playful cures all. Full engaged energy from yourself cures all. Being authentic cures all. Like, that's the thing, and it's a developable skill, right? And just like you get sick if you are being someone's bitch every day, and that's all you're doing, so just squeeze in every morning, repping the right muscle, right? Like, bracing is normal, right? Optics, people pleasing is normal, right? Under stress, energy, hesitancy, freezing is normal. In this
Yeah.
environment, it's very normal, and realize you can't avoid that. But you can definitely take a little window and build a countering muscle. So that's what we hope. You
I
take
like when
away.
they say in the morning, do like a 5-minute exercise, plank, whatever we're saying, in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like a
Find your
small- it's a
mountaintops,
Small hack.
right? Find your
Yeah,
mountaintops.
Yeah, really important. one.
Then before 10 a.m., dig,
Yeah.
right? Dig in, right? And last week's lip class gave you all kinds of tools how to do it. Our team is building things that make it even easier. And just keep doing that. You will find the boss. Should be you. All right?
Guys, we'll see you in the new year. Happy New Year, everyone.